You are watching. Pause. We pause for a second or two. How do we keep life coherent when so much is changing? This is episode 249, Eric Company. This month I am thinking some extra about how to make pause and pausing more available to you. So previous episodes, the last episode and the one before that, has been about monetization, and it has also been about me writing a book on pausing. And in today's episode we will continue in this line of thought by talking about creating a company, creating a business for pause, potentially. And the title of today's episode is Eric Company. So the sort of thing to pause with today is me pausing and spending some time with initially what it means to create a company, a sort of separate legal entity, if you will, out of one's own name, out of one's own identity. Erik Waddell, and a company created out of Erik Waddell. Erik Waddell being the name on this company, or at least that the company or the business comes down to Erik Waddell carrying the responsibility for it, the risk of it. And what does that mean on a day-to-day basis? What does that mean for me as a person? What does that mean for pausing, for making pausing available? The emotional situation of today's episode is our sleep situation. It is for everything related to our sleep. Falling asleep, sleeping and dreaming, and waking up. These three. And the emotional skill of today's episode is specific skill mourning. And mourning is specific for our sleep situation. Specific skill mourning is about that when we wake up in the morning, every morning we must reconcile who we were during our sleep, during our dreams, with the expectations we place upon ourselves about who we are supposed to be during our day. And this is every morning. We need to sort of both take with us and let go of what we were as a person during our sleep, and then make that transition over to the expectations placed upon us about who we are supposed to be now during this day that we have in front of us. The expectations we place on ourselves for the day we have in front of us. So, our sleep and our morning are suitable situation and skill for talking about today's subject, I think. Starting a company in one's own name, or starting a company or a business with one's own name and identity, taking the risk. Say today, for example. Today when I woke up in the morning, I had no company. I had no business. I have no formal legal entity that is part separate from me. It's its own legal entity, but it's also from me. I did not have that this morning. So when I sat down this morning, specific skill morning, and just sort of reconcile who I was during the night and in my dreams, and who I'm now supposed to be during this day, then it's just about being Erik. In one sense, it's just about being Erik. And to sit there during the morning, being Erik, it's about that once we sit there and we pause, we have all these sort of connections inside of us and connections in our social life. And these connections are apparent once we pause, like branches from a tree, or like roots, if we will, down from the tree, down into the ground. We can sense all these connections. And as we sit there during the morning, there we are, and we sort of prepare ourselves for the expectations placed on us about who we are supposed to be, what our role is concerning all these connections, the branches and the roots. That's what we do in the morning. If I then think about having a company in my own name, then that morning will be somewhat different from what it is now. Because a company has its own set of connections, branches, and roots. A company does not exist in a vacuum. A company is tied up in this intricate and complicated infrastructure and bureaucracy. There are tons of obligations, there are tons of demands put on a company, what a company has to sort of deliver on to be allowed to keep existing as a company. So, say that I start a company now for pause. I want to make pausing available to you, so I start a company. Let's say I do that. Then during my morning, when I wake up, there is me, the person Erik, with my branches and roots, all my connections. And then there is also the company's branches and roots. And then me waking up in the morning would be about reconciling who I was during the night, sleeping and dreaming, who I'm supposed to be now during the day, the person Erik, and also what the company is supposed to be during this day. So, if a morning for a person without a company are two things being reconciled, the sleep and the day ahead, then having a company in one's name would be, in a sense, to have three things being reconciled: the sleep, the person, and the company. And I will not know how that is until I do it. There is no getting around that. That's just how it is. I will not know how it is until I do it. So, inevitably, it is a leap that I want to make pausing available. But to make pausing available, I have to demand more of myself, possibly more, definitely different. I have to demand differently of myself when it comes to specific skill morning, when it comes to our sleep situation. The expectations change. And I have thought a lot during the years about what a company really is, what a business really is, and how it is to be a person within a business, within this infrastructure. I've thought a lot about it. And it would seem that companies are a way of organizing ourselves. And when we deal with one another especially when we deal with one another on a financial basis, buying and selling, making commitments of a financial character. We most often do it via these companies. So yes, there you are, and here I am. You're watching this show. I'm sitting here recording this show. But if we would want to take it one step further and make it more available, possibly we would have to include the infrastructure of companies and all that legal business. So what I am both curious about but also dreading is what will that make to pausing as such? What will that do to the integrity of pausing, to the feel of pausing? How will pausing feel once it is a company? How will I feel once I am teaching pausing and discussing pausing through the medium of a company? And in a sense, I guess, there's not much more to do than to just take one step at a time and keep these questions with us as we go. What will happen to the ideal of pausing existing as a sort of free concept, a free phenomenon? And what will happen to us as people when we sort of try to learn it, try to practice it via this vehicle that a company is? It does not necessarily have to be something bad, but I would like us to pause for a second or two and recognize that if a company is created, then the company is there, and the company comes with its own logic, its own intricacies to study. So the company in itself becomes something to pause with, something to study, something to sort of navigate what is interesting and what is difficult. I think that's it, actually. To take one step at a time and pause with, what does this step mean? What really is a company from a pausing perspective? That is interesting. And I think that's what I will spend time with during my mornings, to contemplate what is this step of the company from a pausing perspective. What does it mean to us? Does it change pausing or not? Eric Company. That's it for today. Thank you.